All right. Good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening for our virtual Minton Road Feasibility Study Public Meeting number 2. I am Sarah Crom, the Space Coast TPO Project Manager for this study. The Space Coast TPO continually monitors the conditions of Brevard's transportation systems, modes, and carries out planning at the regional level. We work to identify opportunities to improve mobility for the people and businesses who use the transportation system. Several years ago, the City of West Melbourne submitted the request for the Space Coast TPO to evaluate Minton Road within the city limits, specifically considering bicycle and pedestrian needs and facilities and whether or not the road needed to be widened. We began the project in May 2019. In August 2020, we held a virtual public presentation and developed a virtual project guide website to engage citizens and stakeholders. We experienced our largest number of public attendees and comments for any of our prior corridor studies. We also had over 800 people visit our website. Tonight we are hosting our second public meeting to share with the public our final findings and concepts. We do have a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Today's meeting will be recorded. For those unfamiliar with the GoToWebinar platform, in order to reduce background noise, attendees are in listen-only mode. Time permitting, we will have the opportunity for questions and answers at the end where people can be unmuted and such. The GoToWebinar control panel should be located at the top right-hand corner of your screen, and through that you should be able to mute or unmute yourself during question or answer period once called upon, as well as also utilize the question and answer box. On the control panel under handouts, you can also find a project fact sheet that includes this evening's agenda, project information, and directions regarding the virtual project guide. For our final housekeeping item, we will be utilizing a survey tool to gather some basic information using a computer, tablet, or cellular device. Please go to menti, menti.com using a computer, tablet, or cellular device and enter the code 2671890. And if you could then please sign in using your zip code. So if you could please sign in to the virtual public meeting using your zip code by going to menti, menti.com and use the code 2671890. All right, and then we'll go to our next question. We just have a couple questions. Oh, we still have a bunch of people still logging in. I'll give it just a couple more minutes. All right, looks like we're slowing down. So we will go to our next question. Did you participate in the August virtual public meeting and/or virtual project guide website? So were you with us in August? Right, so it seems to be about 50-50 with a couple unaware. Next one is, how did you hear about tonight's public meeting? So the February 17th meeting. Was it by email, newsletter, word of mouth, Twitter, someone else, something else? And once again, if you would like to participate in the online polling, it is www.menti.com and use the code 2671890. All right, so it seems email and Facebook are our most popular this evening. And then this is our last one for now. What modes of transportation do you use on Minton Road? So do you use a car or vehicle? Do you walk? Is it by bicycle, transit, or bus? Or do you not use Minton Road and you're just here to learn more about the project? All right, so thank you so much for participating in those slides. I am going to turn it over to Travis Hills. And so I'd like to introduce Travis Hills, and he is going to walk us through this evening's agenda and presentation. Just as a reminder, participants are in listen-only mode. This is being recorded, and we will be taking questions and comments at the end. So Travis?
Perfect. You can hear me? Okay.
Yep, you sound great.
All right, awesome. Well, good evening, everybody. We have a great turnout tonight, so thanks for participating in this virtual public meeting. Some folks that participated in the last one, pretty similar setup to what we had previously for folks that first time attending or maybe have attended another one. I appreciate you attending or coming out tonight, I guess. So a little bit on our meeting agenda. We'll talk through the project goals and recap, kind of hopefully get everybody up to speed on what we've been working on for the last couple years. We'll talk through the preferred roadway plan. We'll talk through the traffic operations and cost summary. So everybody likes to know when we go and do all these improvements, what's the benefit going to be, and then the big ticket, how much is going to cost. And then Sarah will round out the presentation with showing you what the virtual project guide looks like. It's a website you can get on. I think a lot of folks have already gotten on there to take a look at the alternatives. We've been getting some good comments on Facebook and through the Google Forms as well. So we appreciate everybody's input and feedback on that. And then Sarah will close us out with some next steps. All right, so a little bit on project goals and recap. So the primary project goals are, the first one is to assess the need and feasibility of widening Minton Road from 4 to 6 lanes. So this was really the whole kind of purpose behind the project initially was there was a request. We wanted to go out, take a look at the roadway, see if the congestion issues were bad enough, now and in the future where we would need to widen to 4 lanes. We determined very early on that that was not an alternative that was going to be explored. When you're looking at a widening project in general, it is a very, very costly improvement. You're talking tens of millions of dollars, and things just aren't really progressing at the rate to get widening projects really kind of done at a fast pace these days, with some issues we're having with gas taxes and other sources of revenue. And so the project team and the technical committee and kind of the local stakeholders really wanted to focus in on alternatives that were going to improve the congestion, improve the safety at our intersections, so really kind of focus on those intersection improvements, and also focus on incorporating and enhancing multimodal improvements, ped, bike, and transit facilities along the corridor. So I'll be kind of talking through, we're staying with 4 lanes, but we're going to do some things along the corridor to enhance everybody else's experience overall. So a little bit on kind of how we got to this point. So we started this project about 2 years ago. Summer, fall, winter of 2019 was where we began our existing conditions analysis. We looked at our future no build. So if we didn't do anything, what would be the impacts to traffic, congestion, all the other modes that are out there today, and it helped determine our issues and opportunities. So that was really our springboard into identifying our improvements. We looked at roadway and intersection alternatives. We brought a whole bevy of options to you all here back in August of 2020, so a few months ago. So we had our first public meeting. We presented a bunch of kind of roadway typical sections. We We proposed numerous intersection alternatives, got really good feedback from you all that really kind of helped shape the preferred alternative or the preferred roadway plan that we're going to be talking about tonight, which we've been developing over the past few months. All right, so a little bit on the preferred roadway plan. And what I want to talk about first is what's out there today. And so it's always good to frame the improvements based on what's already out there. So what we have is an existing 5-foot sidewalk on each side of the road. We're putting that really kind of towards the right-of-way line. We have that wide grass kind of swale area that's between the sidewalk and the paved shoulder. The paved shoulder is about 4 feet wide. And then we have 2 12-foot travel lanes in each direction, and then a 15-foot median with some curb and gutter in the middle of the road. So what we're hopefully going to be transforming this corridor to, this is our preferred roadway alternative. I do want to stress that the public, this got 34% of the vote. So of the 3 alternatives that we showed, plus the do nothing approach, this got the most votes of any of the alternatives. The second place came in somewhere kind of in the low 20%. So just kind of keeping that in mind that we don't need 50% to win here. We just need to have the best alternative or the most voted alternative that was coming out of that first public meeting. So the folks got on, they voted, they voiced their opinions. We have some of the features with this. Really, the big one is the 12-foot shared use paths on either side. And the reason for that, if anybody's kind of gone, walked, driven the corridor, especially during school time and really kind of school time pre-COVID. So we were doing all of our field reviews. It was pre-COVID, which was a very long time ago, and it was a very long time ago. But we saw a lot of interaction with school kids walking, biking along the corridor, really kind of north of the bridge, Eber Boulevard, really up through Wingate, up through all those schools, and more towards the northern part of the corridor. So really saw a lot of interaction with kids using the sidewalks to bike, kids using the sidewalks to walk, and just a lot of kind of interactions around the schools. The other thing I wanted to also talk through was the 11-foot travel lanes. And so we're shortening the lane widths. We're going from 12 feet down to 11. We've heard some concern from that on some of the comments that we've received so far. And so, that's great feedback to have. And what we'll do is we'll kind of talk through that here towards the end of the presentation. I know somebody will probably have a comment on it, so we'll talk through a little bit of the kind of benefits of those 11-foot lanes here towards the end of the presentation. All right, so Palm Bay Road. So Sarah, you're probably gonna have to click as I kind of talk through this so we can see the arrows pop up. So the first thing that we wanted to do is really emphasize the safety improvements that are happening at Palm Bay Road. So we're going to be realigning the left turn lanes. This came out of a road safety audit that was done a few years ago, help improve the kind of capacity and kind of the weaving maneuvers for those people coming from Palm Bay Road to go south onto Minton Road. And then the next few that we have, we're also going to be helping improve the curb return radii, shortening the crossing distance for the pedestrian facilities. And then on the northwest and northeast corners where we're kind of tying in those shared use paths, this is the southern terminus of our study corridor, we're going to be enhancing those pedestrian facilities to improve safety and connect those shared use paths. Now, we also got some comments. We saw that folks were concerned about the capacity, the traffic operations. People are sitting through this signal for a very long time. We hear you. Unfortunately, this is one of those intersections that's a little bit more complex than what we were kind of looking at as part of our study. And there's really kind of a system that goes with Palm Bay Road, Minton Road to the south, and then Emerson Drive, and those kind of interactions. Folks coming from the neighborhoods, coming down Emerson, left on Minton, right on Palm Bay Road, and then vice versa in the PM, coming from the interstate. And so what we're recommending is actually an additional study to kind of look at that area as a whole and really try to fix or try to propose improvements that fix kind of that entire area and those interactions between those two signals. All right, so at Heald Road, going through this pretty quickly, we're adding an exclusive eastbound left turn lane that's going to improve traffic operations and safety at the intersection. And then we also are enhancing our pedestrian facilities to improve the connectivity to those, to safety and connectivity to those shared use paths on the west and east side of Minton Road. All right. And so at Norfolk and Carriage Gate, so we're proposing some improvements here as well. So at Norfolk, we're going to be adding or recommending dual eastbound left turn lanes with a shared through right turn lane, so improve traffic operations. The great thing about this project, this is currently moving forward. So of all of the improvements that we're recommending, this one's under designed by the city of West Melbourne right now. So it's something that you'll probably see here in the not too distant future. So the next part up at Carriage Gate, if we go one more, there we go. So you'll see that we're actually converting this to a directional median opening. And this does a couple different things. So right now, for folks that are trying to turn left out of Carriage Gate, you know, you're waiting there for a pretty long time. You're waiting for a gap to cross those southbound lanes, go sit in the median, and then you're waiting for another gap to go north onto Minton Road. And so overall, it takes a very long time to turn left out of there, and it's not really the safest maneuver either, especially with this intersection being kind of the bottom of the bridge or the bottom of the hill, kind of coming over the overpass from I-95. So what we're hoping is that we're going to convert it to a directional median opening. Folks are going to come up, make a right-hand turn. They're going to go down to Norfolk. They're going to make a U-turn, and then they're going to be able to travel north. Now, it's not necessarily intuitive, but this is actually a faster movement. So right turn followed by a U-turn, we'll be able to kind of sync up all the traffic timings, the signal timings, to make sure that those U-turns happen quickly. And it'll actually be a more efficient movement to do that. Plus, it'll be a lot safer to make the right and make the U-turn as opposed to trying to make the left across Minton Road to go northbound. So at Eber, so we're adding a second westbound left turn lane. This will improve our traffic operations. With that improvement, we're actually adding a traffic separator as well. This helps with the access management from the gas station on the corner. So today there's just paint. Folks can make a left turn out of there across the 3 lanes that are there today. It makes for a relatively unsafe maneuver. So when we go through and add another turn lane in there, you're now having to cross 3 lanes to get into the lane that you want to travel in along Eber. We're going to restrict that movement. It's already restricted today. You technically can't make that movement today. You physically can, you technically can't. So we're just going to go through, add a concrete separator to further kind of reinforce the fact that you shouldn't be making that left out. And then the last thing we're going to do is enhance the pedestrian facilities like all of the other intersections that we've talked about up to this point. So at Milwaukee and Heritage Oaks, we heard you loud and clear for the folks that attended the previous public meetings. So there were some alternatives that weren't very favorable. And then we also got some feedback about folks really kind of struggling to make the left turn out from Heritage Oaks Boulevard. And so we got some comments to look at some additional turn lanes. If you hit the next button, Sarah, you'll see the arrow pointing to the new westbound left turn lane at Heritage Oaks Boulevard. So what we're hoping is that we can kind of reconfigure the signal, add that left turn lane, and provide a protected left turn movement for the folks coming out of Heritage Oaks that they don't have today. And so it'll be a much safer movement. We won't have the people that are, you know, turning left in front of other cars that are coming across from Milwaukee Avenue from the other side of the intersection, and really kind of providing a safer, more efficient environment at that intersection. So then the next piece is on the Milwaukee side. So on the other side of the intersection, we're going to be recommending an additional eastbound lane as well. This is something that hasn't quite been fully flushed out yet. It's something that we're going to put in the report as a future consideration as future development comes in, something that West Melbourne can think about and kind of coordinate with local partners to get that constructed. So Henry Avenue, this one really didn't change a whole lot from the previous public meeting. So we got pretty good feedback on this. We got about 63% voted for this alternative. We were looking to add a second westbound left turn lane. This will improve traffic operations. And then in addition to that second westbound left turn lane, we're going to need some access management improvements along Henry as well. So part of the problem, and similar to the Sunoco down at Eber, we don't want folks making a left turn, across potentially 3 lanes of traffic. Like I said, you can do it today, but we're hoping to restrict that, make it a little bit of a safer kind of corridor on Henry, kind of east of Minton Road. What we're doing to offset that, and Sarah, if you want to hit the forward button a few times. If you want to go one more, yep, perfect. So what we're doing to help kind of offset those access management improvements that we're making along Henry, we're actually going to add a new southbound left turn lane into the USPS along Minton Road. So we're going to hopefully be accommodating all of those movements just in different places around the intersection, but everybody's still going to have access to the USPS. So transit stop improvements, there's a few different things that we're going to be looking at along the corridor. We did want to emphasize that we are accommodating transit stops. So if folks have driven the corridor, for the folks that drive the corridor every day, you see that there's some stops where there's just posts in the ground. There's other stops where there's the full shelter. What we're going to do is anything with a full shelter, we're still going to accommodate that. So the shared use path will either go to the inside, or they'll all go to the inside of the existing shelters, but there'll be enough space to still get the full 12 feet in there in front of those existing shelters. What we'll see is on the other side of the road, so really kind of that left graphic where the existing transit stop with the new pedestrian shelter, you'll see that we actually have the new shelter inside the right-of-way line. We bring that shared use path in, kind of narrow it up a little bit, just to be able to kind of get it between the transit shelter and the road. And so pretty kind of common situation that we have along the corridor, but at the end of the day, we won't need any right-of-way for any new transit shelter improvements or additions, and we're still able to maintain, an 8 to 10 to 12 foot shared use path in all of those kind of pinch point areas. So a little bit on the traffic operations summary, and Sarah, if you just want to do a couple clicks here. Perfect. So what we're looking at is the top box is all of our intersections. So all of the intersections that I just reviewed, all of the improvements that we're making, we always want to see what it's going to do from an operational perspective. How is it going to make your drive better, more efficient? And so what you see is kind of that left part. You see a lot of reds, you see a lot of kind of oranges, a lot of level of service Fs, a lot of Es. Just like grades in school, A is great, F is not so great. So we don't want to see Fs, but what we see is without improvements, 4 of our 6 intersections that we just talked about are going to be level of service EF in at least one of kind of the AM or PM peak travel hours. And so really not great if we don't do anything. So flip that. If we actually do the improvements that we've kind of talked through tonight, we actually see that there's only one intersection. It's Norfolk Parkway, level service E in the AM, but it still is a pretty significant improvement. And then all of your other intersections are level service D, C, B. We got some A's in there. So all of that is just great, especially when we're looking out, 25 years, out to 2045 here. So then the last part, the part on the bottom, is we also look at the corridor as a whole as well. And so it's a relatively short corridor that we're looking at, about 3 miles total, but we do see travel time reductions. So we'll be able to go in, kind of sync all these signals up so that when the improvements come into effect, everything really kind of flows together, and you're seeing about 9 to 28% travel time reductions along the corridor. So making sure you're getting through safer, making sure you're getting through quicker, and everybody's happy at the end of the day. So now the big slide, the money slide, what everybody likes to see is how much does it cost? And so fortunately, there is right-of-way out there today to do most of our improvements. The only one that we're thinking is at Henry. For the USPS, we may need to take some right-of-way from them kind of on the south side of Henry to make that improvement work. But overall, we're not looking at any other right-of-way costs outside of that. And our total construction cost for the entire project, or construction plus right-of-way, is just shy of $13.6 million. So relatively manageable kind of in the grand scheme when you compare it back to a potential 6-lane widening, which could have been, upwards of, 30, 40, $50 million. Now I'm going to pass it back to Sarah.
All right, thank you, Travis, for providing that overview. So if you have not visited our project, our virtual project guide yet at www.mintonroadstudy.com, I really encourage you to do so. You basically you are able to navigate by either using the top station list on the top, or you can also just press the next station at the bottom of each of the pages. Also, don't forget to sign in at the welcome station. You can The existing conditions, roadway alternatives, and intersection alternatives sections were discussed during the August public meeting. So these three were the main focus during the August public meeting. We left them on there to show the previous work so you can see kind of where we started and where we are now. The preferred roadway alternative and feedback section, as well as also we updated the next steps. These are our new sections. So the preferred roadway concept is what Travis just reviewed today and what we are seeking public input on. If you go to the feedback section, there is a Google Forms that you can fill out and provide comments, as well as also some general feedback on the website and such. Please complete this by February 24th at 4 p.m. That will be our cutoff. Once again, the website is www.mintonroadstudy.com. Next, we are going to review the next steps. So finally, we will be doing final project presentations to the City of West Melbourne City Council on Tuesday, March 2nd. And then we will be presenting to the Space Coast TPO board and committees the week of March 8th. So it'll be March 8th and March 10th will be those presentations. We'll have the final report for the study published by the end of March. And then this is what's really important is the next phase of the project. So we just presented this kind of grand scheme of what of potential that could be Minton Road. And it's important to remember that at this time, the next phase of the project are not funded. So there is no additional monies to build, construct, or design this project at this time. Ultimately, in order for these concepts to become a reality, funding would need to be pursued and the project implemented probably by a partnership with West Melbourne and Brevard County. It's going to take a lot of partners to make this happen. It's obviously, as Travis said, it could be a much more expensive project, but it definitely is, it's $13+ million. So ultimately, in order for this project to go from a conceptual feasibility study into an actual reality, there'll need to be public support as well as also a partnership and pursuing of additional funds. So before we will be opening up for questions in just a second, but I do just have a couple of Minty questions that we just want to follow up on. Some of these are questions that we always ask at our public meetings. And then some of them are more project specific. So have you or do you plan to visit the project website? So once again, if you just logged in, we are utilizing a tool called Mentimeter. You go to www.menti.com and use the code 2671890. You can use your cell phone, tablet, a computer, whatever device you have. And so have you or do you plan to visit the project website? Just give a couple minutes for that. All right, it's slowing down. So please, we then just have a couple demographic questions that we ask for all public meetings. Please select your age range. You can prefer not to answer. You can also just not answer at all using Menti and just skip this question. All right, please select your ethnicity. Once again, you do not have to answer this by any means. You can say prefer not to answer. Oh, I am not showing the results. There we go. I had a glitch, sorry. All right, we're slowing down on that one. So to keep us moving forward, on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rank the virtual format overall? So how would you rank being able to attend virtually? Um, definitely we're just working through the virtual struggles and and new world that we live in. We obviously this was the second time, the first being the other public meeting with us holding a virtual public meeting, and so we're definitely still new at it and would love some feedback. All right. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, how informative did you find the webinar? So how informative did you find Travis's discussion? Great, thank you. And I think we just have one. This is our last one, so I'll just kind of leave it up. And how could we improve virtual meetings in the future? So thinking outside of not just this virtual meeting, but any kind of public virtual meetings that the TPO has. If you have any suggestions, I can't send cookies to all of your houses. That was not within the project budget, but just any feedback would be great because we obviously want to continue to improve and make sure that we're adequately addressing and connecting with the public in the new virtual format. So we will well, I'll just leave this one up so you can just continue giving your feedback um, as you want. I am just going to really quickly pull up the website just so you can take a peek at what it looks like. So as I said, during the walkthrough, is please sign in, and then you can scroll down and do next station to get to the next station, or you can hop around right there. So we'll just leave that up and we can start taking questions and answers. So um, Laura, I'm going to ask that you give us some of the questions.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. First one was kind of a comment, but I believe one of you or Travis could address. It was a comment regarding about the narrowing of the lanes from 12 to 11 feet. They prefer to reduce the width of the sidewalks and keep the lane widths the same as they are. Could you speak to the benefits of why reducing the lanes and having the sidewalks at the width we're proposing is a good idea for safety?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great question. One that, I alluded a little bit to at the beginning, and I figured it would come up, be one of the first ones. And so glad we're going to kind of answer that right off the bat. So um, there's a lot that kind of goes into those decisions. And the 11-foot lanes is really something that's become fairly commonplace in pretty much every study that's been done pretty much over probably the last 5 years, maybe even before that. There are safety kind of factors or crash reduction factors that show that the lane narrowing really doesn't have a whole lot of effect. So going from 12 to 11, there really is no disbenefit. There isn't this big spike in crashes because the lanes are 1 foot less wide. Now, when you go down any further than that, when you go down to 10 feet or 9 feet, there is research that show that crashes do increase. But at 11 feet, we're seeing that the relative difference is really negligible from a safety perspective. Now, what it kind of does overall is it helps kind of manage speeds along the corridor. And what we're hoping is that the implementation of the curb and gutter to the outside, so having some type of kind of vertical presence instead of, right now it's the paved shoulder and then you have the swale. So the road feels really wide open. So folks can drive pretty much as fast as they want, maybe kind of outside the peak hours, because peak hours you got some congestion, but when we've been out there, you can drive 50, 55, 60, posted speeds 45. What we're hoping is that kind of the lane narrowing, the curb and gutter will ultimately kind of make the corridor feel a little bit tighter. and will hopefully slow folks down back to kind of getting them towards that posted speed limit of 45 miles an hour. Now, you know, folks may be thinking, well, if you're going to slow speeds down, you know, how are you going to be more efficient? How are you going to get those travel time reductions? Well, what we're hoping is we're not trying to slow people down to 35. That's not the intent here. The intent is to get people that are going 60 to get them to go 45 or 50, you know, really kind of make those higher speeds get a little bit lower. And then what's going to end up happening is with these improvements along the corridor, we can sync up all those traffic signals, like I was saying, where it becomes a very efficient system. So if you're driving 45, you'll hit all those green lights and you'll go from Palm Bay Road to US 192 in no time. And what ends up happening is you get people that go 60, they speed up, and then they slam on their brakes when they hit a red light. Well, there's a reason why. It's because the road isn't built for folks to go 60. The road's built for folks to go 45. And so, you know, I think I'm saying things that I think a lot of people are probably shaking their heads saying, yeah, I've seen that. And you know, that's what ultimately what we're trying to do is really kind of get folks back to driving the intended speed for this facility. With that comes a lot of other benefits. So if we're slowing speeds down along the corridor, getting folks to drive closer to the posted speed, it helps at all of our intersections where we have those potential conflicts with pedestrians and bicyclists. And so if a folk's going 55 through an intersection versus 45 through an intersection, there's less reaction time. If somebody steps out in a crosswalk, maybe when they shouldn't be, you know, there's a lot of issues there, even just by going 10 miles above the posted speed limit. And so what we're hoping is that kind of a lot of those, you know, combinations going down to 11 feet, doing the curb and gutter, the wider shared use path, really kind of making it really more known to folks that are driving that there are pedestrians and bicyclists out here really trying to enhance that environment. We're really trying to make it safer, a safer corridor overall for everyone. So just, you know, recap, we're not really seeing a negligible difference in terms of safety between 12 and 11 feet. 11 feet really is a standard lane width for most projects. It's in the Florida Design Manual for kind of this type of roadway. So that's something that you're seeing on a lot of the projects that are coming out. So any folks that have either, you know, been to the Malabar Road PD&E that's going on out St. John's Heritage Parkway to Minton Road, those are going to be 11-foot lanes proposed. Babcock Street PD&E in the 45-mile-an-hour section, so kind of south of Malabar Road, we're also looking at 11-foot lanes there. So 11-foot, just to kind of say, is a very common thing. And one real-world example, so for the folks that ride this corridor every day or drive this corridor every day, if you've driven through the Minton US 192 intersection and you've seen how that's been reconstructed, all of those lanes are all 11 feet. So, you know, the next time you drive it, you probably won't notice much of a difference between the 12s and 11s because there really isn't much. And so, you know, the lanes on Minton, those are all 11 feet through that intersection. Along US 192 through the intersection, those are all 11 feet wide. And so, you know, just kind of keep that in the back of your mind that there are things that have been constructed that are 11 feet. You probably may not have noticed that they're down to 11 feet. And it's pretty standard kind of common practice that we've been seeing, you know, at least over the past 5 years, if not before.
Okay, thank you, Travis. We have quite a few questions, so I apologize that we probably won't have time to get through all of them. But the next one here, could you revisit probably the improvements at the Minton Fell Road Wingate intersection that is highly trafficked by children? There seems to be concerns on what those improvements were going to be.
Yep, and we actually didn't have that in the presentation. So Sarah, you won't find it. It's actually in the concept plan on the website. So if you go into the website, there'll be a link or area where you can click on the concept plan. And at that intersection, what we're hoping to do, and Sarah's going to pull it up right now, or Sarah will pull up the area where you can do that. So so if you go down and you click on that. Scroll up, yep, right there. So if you click on that link, you'll be able to pull this concept up and kind of zoom in, zoom out. And so, yeah, actually, if Sarah kind of zooms in, we can go in and talk through that. So yes, you are correct. Very heavily traveled by both vehicles and pedestrians and bicyclists. That's where the concentration of all of our schools are. And so as you'll see, what we're hoping to do, when we zoom in a little bit further here, a few different things. So if you've walked this intersection, you'll notice that the kind of curb returns or the kind of purple areas, the purple shaded areas on the northeast and the the northeast and the southeast corners are pretty wide. And for folks that have stood on those corners, you'll see that vehicles kind of over track. You have to make sure you're not standing right next to the road. You may get run over, for lack of a better term. But what we're hoping is that we can go in and really kind of tighten those corners up a little bit. Doing so will make drivers drive a little bit slower as they're making those turns. We're also going to go back in and enhance the crosswalks on the kind of north and south legs as well. And so what you'll see is we've actually extended the median noses, and Sarah's kind of hovering over it with her cursor right now. We've extended those median noses a little bit further to provide a little bit more protection for those pedestrians, bicyclists, for the school kids that are walking across the intersection. And so hopefully making some of those improvements, tightening up the corners, adding the enhanced crosswalks, hopefully really kind of make folks realize, I mean, you would think that the folks that are dropping kids off at school, they would know that there's a lot of pedestrians at this intersection, but there's still those issues there. So really kind of tightening a lot of that up, hopefully making it a better pedestrian environment. We're also going to go through and add some signage as well, some signage that kind of further reinforces turning vehicles yielding to pedestrians in the crosswalk. And so that's really one of our big concerns, is folks that are either pulling up into the crosswalk to make a turn, not yielding to pedestrians, the pedestrians got to walk around them, or just not looking before they're turning. And so we're hoping to kind of enhance a lot of those pedestrian features, make it a lot safer for pedestrians and bicyclists at this intersection.
Okay. Another question, was there a recommendation, and I know you spoke about it, at Minton and Norfolk in front of Sawgrass Lakes? There is also some comments related to this regarding development going out from Carriage Gate and making the U-turns, and the concern of all the vehicles will be needing to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Sarah, if you want to scroll back if you can, we'll just pull that intersection up here. So to address the second point first, so the vehicles that are coming out and making that U-turn, from what we've seen, the highest concentration is during the peak hours, and really during the AM peak hours. So folks that are going to work. From that, we're seeing, maybe 30 cars, maybe 30 to 40 cars are doing that in the morning. So overall, just not a very high number. And, I know that for the 30 or 40 to folks that are doing it, it is a significant, it may seem like a significant impact, but overall, I think those folks who are sitting there right now are probably waiting 2 to 3 minutes, if not more, to make the left out. And they may be waiting a couple minutes to make the left out to get into the median, and then wait another couple minutes for traffic to clear northbound to go northbound on a Minton Road. We saw it when we were out on our field review. I think we've seen it in our analysis as well. And so, it's actually quicker, it's faster to make the right out, go down, make a U-turn, and the U-turn's protected. So that's a much safer movement as well. And it's actually overall, it's more efficient to make a right, go down and make a U-turn to head north. And so there's a lot of benefits with doing this kind of access management approach. And it's something that, we talked about with the county, and Brevard County was supportive of that moving forward. Now, Laura, you mentioned something about Sawgrass Lakes. Is that right?
Yes, someone was wanting to know about what recommendations would there be for Minton and Norfolk in front of Sawgrass Lakes.
So I am not 100% familiar with where that is. So let me. Sorry,
I think Mr. Morgan is on, if we could. Scott, would you mind? I just unmuted you, Mr. Morgan. Would you mind talking a little bit about Sawgrass
The proposed improvement, which is under design, is an additional eastbound lane on Norfolk Parkway as it approaches Minton. and the consultant has recommended that we stripe that focus mostly on AM peak, which is a double left and a through right. So you're transitioning from a single lane eastbound out of Sawgrass Lakes and the school, the charter school. And so the idea is to make that intersection function better by having twice as many left turns go north on Minton in the AM peak as in a single cycle than they can right now by having a double protected left. And so that's the proposed improvement that benefits Sawgrass Lakes and the charter school.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. All right, Laura, next question.
Okay, we have some hand raised, and I believe there's also a request that the Mayor Hal Rose would like to speak. I will find him on the sign in and unmute. Mr. Rose, you've been unmuted if you would like to express your comments
Okay.
now.
I didn't know that I was going to be live, but I'm not in favor of the 11-foot lanes for a number of reasons. We can control that by either reducing the speed limit, which I know is not part of this study, but we can certainly do that. We do have enough police to enforce the speed limits. Also making U-turns, which is very prevalent on every one of these intersections. When we cut 2 feet off each lane direction, it's very difficult to make that U-turn, especially the way you move the pedestrian places. So can you address that? And then I have some other thoughts too, if you want to address that first.
Well, I mean, I think I've addressed most of that probably in the first question. So I don't really want to go through and rehash.
Okay. I know that you just use your manual, but I'm trying to think of the reality of this. Since you don't want to talk about that, but I think that's the way most of West Melbourne feels. The other thing is in front of the post office, eastbound lane turning on Henry, that stacking backs up from one intersection to the other in front of the post office. So I think we need to work with the post office to buy a little easement there to make a right turn eastbound lane on Henry to get the traffic off of Minton a little quicker. So I think that should be part of the study as well. Your thoughts?
So what I'm confused about what the stacking is. We added the westbound, the second westbound left turn lane.
You're on Minton at the Minton and Henry. I'm sorry, you cut out.
No, I was going to let you finish.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yep.
We're on Minton Road, turning right on Henry. It would be nice to have a dedicated right turn lane, because right now the traffic backs up from all the way from Henry to Heritage Oaks Boulevard in the mornings, and people are waiting on both. You can't turn on there because the traffic is from one intersection to the other. So if we had a right turn lane there where your cursor is, I think that would alleviate a lot of traffic.
Okay.
That's part of the easement.
That sounds good. We'll take a look at that.
Okay, very good. And okay, and also the other comment I had made is further north, right before you get to 192. That traffic, I know your handout said you go all the way to 192, but that traffic turning eastbound again on 192, that lane is too short. And if we can just add a little right turn lane on that from Minton to 192, I believe that would help traffic flow as well.
Okay, that sounds good.
And the 11-foot lanes, I'm pretty hard set on that, as are the residents of West Melbourne. And the other comment is, this road is a county road, as we know. I don't think we should put the onus just on West Melbourne as far as Minton Road is, Milwaukee Road as well. yes, if we do get a project on that corner, they can chip in, but I think that could be part of this project, have the turn lane off of Milwaukee, because that will help traffic flow as well. But that should be part of the monies in this program. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Well, thank you. We also have some other hands raised and some questions. I believe Councilmember Pat Bentley would like to have a comment also. I'm unmuting you. You may ask your question now.
You can hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I actually support a lot of what Mayor Rose said. I don't currently favor the narrower lanes. I'd like to see the lanes stay the way they are and take a couple of feet off each of the sidewalks, which would still be almost twice as wide as they are now. And when you pull out of, for example, the Lowe's parking lot and make the right, which is forced, going south on Minton Road, and you go to the next light and have to make a U-turn there at that intersection, you run off the road currently, or very nearly run off the road with 11 or 12-foot lanes. You narrow those lanes, you're for sure going to be running off the road there. You're going to have the same problem at Sawgrass. I went and I drove that the other day after having a discussion with Scott Morgan. You run off the road when you make that U-turn very nearly now, and I've got a very very small truck, not a large one. And if you narrow those lanes, you're going to be running off the road at both of those two intersections right now, and you're forcing a U-turn at the one by not allowing Carriage Gate to make the left there, which I'm fine with. I think you got to give and take, but I don't favor the narrow lanes. I don't think West Melbourne's going to favor the residents, from at least the ones I've spoken with. I'd like to see the police enforce the speed limit if speed's an issue. I know we can make that happen. But I do appreciate the project. I think there is a lot of benefit to this. There's just a couple things that I personally would like to see tweaked. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's a great point. So something that we hadn't really taken a look at are those kind of U-turn movements and how we would handle those. What we can do is we can provide paved areas. They're called loons, and I mentioned them a little bit when I was talking about the restricted crossing U-turn concept at the previous public meeting. But we can actually go in, and I have Google Earth pulled up on my other screen, so that's what I'm looking at. And I see what you're talking about, where at Helen Street, where folks are making that U-turn, and you have all that kind of dirt that's all tore up out there, and that's with 12-foot lanes and a 4-foot paved shoulder. So what we can do is, I think we can kind of alleviate the concern with the U-turns by going in and adding those paved areas. And you know, whether it was 12 feet or 11 feet, the 2 feet probably isn't going to make a whole lot of difference on the U-turns. And so I think what the solution there is to go in and do the loons. And so that'll be something that we take a look at. We'll probably add those at a few locations. And so when we come back and present this here in a couple weeks to the city council on the 2nd, I think you'll see a couple of those updated concepts at some of those intersections.
Yeah, I think that'd be pretty significant. Again, you're running off the road now when you make that U-turn, or almost every time. Depends on how far you can point to the right of the lane before you begin your U-turn. And you're making the lanes a foot narrower, which, you know, on both sides, so you're going to lose more there. So it's going to be have to be a pretty significant swing out. And you've got the same problem, I think, at Sawgrass, where you force a U-turn there. But again,
what we'll do is we'll look at every intersection and see kind of what, I mean, we have counts as well that show how many U-turn vehicles were coming in the kind of existing condition. And so I think, you know, Helen's one of those. Norfolk, where we're forcing the U-turns, I think is another spot. And then we'll take a look at the other intersections in between to see if any kind of forced U-turns are happening, where we may need to add that.
I appreciate this. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Bentley. Next, we have a citizen, I believe, Julietta Krell. I apologize if I pronounce your name incorrectly, but please unmute yourself and you may ask your question.
Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes,
yep.
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So we live in Carriage Gate, and we were just really concerned that there was a planned ride out only. I think that was probably the worst the worst case scenario for the community of Carriage Gate. I know that you made that plan on the current traffic situation, but I don't think you took into consideration that there's a parcel of land that's going to be adding 55 new homes right off of Carriage Gate Drive that will use Carriage Gate Drive to get onto Minton proposed here in the next year or so. That they're annexing that land now, and it's going to add probably over 200 cars to the problem. And then across the street from Minton, from Carriage Gate Drive, there is an apartment complex that they're talking about putting in there, which is going to add thousands of more cars, hundreds or thousands of more cars to an already extremely congested area. So I had talked to the county commissioner for District 5, Christine Zonka, in her office, and they approved a left turn out of Carriage Gate acceleration lane that would allow us to safely, or more safely than we're doing now, pull out and merge onto the northbound lane of Minton Road. And that was proposed to be built in this quarter, which would have helped not only Carriage Gate, but it would have helped the community that's going to be built, the 55 home community that's going to be built. And it would have been a better way for us to, get on the Minton Road to go north. Going down to Norfolk Parkway to do a U-turn is crazy, because I don't know, we live in this community. We don't just come here and do a study. We live here, and we know what it's like to go down to Norfolk and try to navigate a U-turn. And now you're going to be adding potentially 1,000 more cars to that scenario or more, fighting to do a U-turn on Norfolk Parkway just to get back to West Melbourne. And then on the I don't know which side of the road that is. I guess it's the east side of the road from Norfolk. When you're trying to come on, they can turn right on red. They have 2 lanes currently that can turn right on red onto Minton Road. And we've tried to do U-turns there and almost got into accidents because people don't yield the right of way to the U-turn traffic. So we are extremely against that. I think that we should go forward with the left turn acceleration lane out of Carriage Gate. And then that way it will alleviate having to do these crazy U-turns and causing a lot more future traffic problems in this area. So we're against that right turn out. I think we should go with the District 5. Christina's Zonka's office worked very hard to secure the money and get that done for us, and we appreciated it very much. And now you guys are going to come in and you're going to put a right turn only, which I think is just going to add to the problem running, in the future. Because you have to consider what's being proposed to be built around this in the next year to 5 years. It's just going to add more issues to the traffic situation already. Thank you.
So kind of a couple points to address that. So that's a great concerns, great feedback. The Brevard County project is the short-term solution at this location. So Sarah, Laura, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's under design right now, or it's going to be under design.
Correct. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. So that northbound acceleration lane is still moving forward. There's no concerns with our plan kind of superseding that or coming in over the top. The thing that you have to realize about what we're doing is we're in the planning phase. So we're at the very, very beginning, and there's still a lot more work that has to be done for any of these recommendations to come to fruition. So
right.
You have no worries about the northbound acceleration lane. We're actually going to put in the report that that's happening and that we support that. And so we're not coming in saying we're not supporting that. That is moving forward and something we've coordinated with the county on.
So can I ask a quick question, please?
Yep.
I'm having conversations with Danielle Stern, who works for Christine Zonka, and she's saying it's been put on hold because of this situation, that they're not moving forward with it. And they're waiting on, they're saying that, they're going with what the county is saying. So somehow the disconnect is out there, because I've got emails from Danielle Stern saying that they're going to put it on hold for now until all this gets figured out. So I don't think the head's talking to the body. I don't think people are, I don't know what's going on, but I'm hearing 2 different stories. I'm hearing it's going forward from you, and I'm hearing it's not going forward from the county commissioner's office. So I don't know who's telling the truth here or what's what. So
Hi, Georgiana, and would you like to speak to this since you and I had a conversation with Danielle Stern this morning, or is there anything that you might like to add?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, I have a new headset on, so I'm not 100% sure. Yes, sir. So Danielle did call our office this morning, and what Travis, mentioned is our understanding. They're going to be in contact with Mark Bernath with Brevard County to make sure that we're all on the same page. But again, what we're doing here does not supersede what Brevard County is doing. I mean, we did this project on behalf of the city of West Melbourne and Brevard County. They've been sitting at the table with us all along the way. So, it may seem like that we're not on the same page here, but we will be in close coordination with the Brevard County. And as far as, we're concerned that those improvements are going to be moving forward.
so so basically what you're telling me is that acceleration lane is going forward?
That is our understanding. Yes.
That is our understanding from Brevard County, yes.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, Laura, we are technically out of time, but we will take one more question if you would like to queue up who's next.
Lance Lester would be our last question. You have been unmuted, sir.
Yeah,
Make it a good one.
you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right, great. My question is more about just allocation of costs. We talked about a couple different intersections within West Melbourne, but also within I think the one to the south in Minton Road and Palm Bay is more for Palm Bay, City Palm Bay. The one for Norfolk, and full disclosure, I am a resident of Sawgrass. Seems to be more for the city of Melbourne because they have the density out, to the west of Sawgrass Lakes. And then we talked about the Milwaukee Avenue, which is really just June Park, which is just the county. So I'm just more wondering of what is the allocation of this expense if this is to be done?
That's a really great and an interesting question, and I appreciate us ending on this one because that really goes back to where we were talking about the next steps is, so at this time, as I mentioned, there is no funding on the project. And ultimately, what we want to portray is that in order for this project to move forward, it is going to take partnership between all the municipalities that you just discussed. What section or part of this plan or study that moves forward first will really be up to the municipalities to carry it forward. Regretfully, as a transportation planning organization, we are not able to implement projects. So we kind of get the planning phase done, and now it's really going to be in the hands of the locals. Obviously, we're going to support as we can, and if it does involve federal funding, then we will definitely, be putting projects on our priority lists and helping with that as well. But I think that as far as actual percentages of who's paying for what, it's too soon to say because we haven't identified what the funding source is, and the County of West Melbourne hasn't identified which projects they would like to move forward at this time, or do they want the full big picture. This is ultimately this is a plan. It's the big picture view of what Minton could be. Are all these projects going to happen? It's up to it's too soon to say, and so I hope that answered your question as best as I could at this time.
I would say that just based on some of the statistics that you've taken, I would say that any of the pedestrian centric costs probably could be saved because almost everyone on that poll was a driver. So I don't know if we need, kind of get ourselves involved with a pedestrian centric or a bicycle focused plan when pretty much everyone here is using a car.
Well,
Thank you for.
yeah, thank you for that comment. The last thing I would just like to say on that is, we definitely appreciate everyone attending, and but also if you look at the poll with ages, we had none of our school students attending. There was very few, younger individuals attending where they have children potentially attending school. And so what our experience was that it was very heavily populated in the morning, and there was definitely some near misses with students walking to and from school. So I appreciate that, but we just want to make sure we're being inclusive of all the users. All right, so thank you everyone for all the comments. We will be going through and answering the rest of them and posting that on our the project web page on the Space Coast TPO website. And so we definitely appreciate everyone giving us some time this morning. Excuse me, this evening. This evening. And please, if you haven't visited the website and filled out the survey, that's another great way to make your voices heard. As well as also you can attend any of the public presentations that are coming up. So with that, I'd just like to say everyone have a great evening, drive safe, and thank you all for attending.